Les Gold risked everything and almost lost it all. The king of pawn turned his Detroit shop into a reality TV empire. But behind the scenes, things weren't as simple as they seemed. Employee betrayals, money struggles, and a deal so shocking, it made headlines worldwide. His story didn't end when Hardcore Pawn went off the air. The truth about what happened next is nothing like what fans expected. So after all these years, what really became of Les Gold? Les Gold built Hardcore Pawn on chaos, big personalities, and even bigger deals. But no one expected the real drama to come from inside his own shop. American Jewelry and Loan wasn't just a TV set. It was a business, a family operation, and a high-stakes battleground for cash, customers, and conflict. Les, his son Seth, and his daughter Ashley ran the place like a well-oiled machine. They dealt with wild customers, crazy negotiations, and the occasional fight. But the biggest betrayal? It came from the people they trusted the most. Their own employees. You'd think that working in a pawn shop featured on national TV would make employees extra careful, right? Security cameras everywhere. The Gold family watching their every move. Millions of viewers tuning in. But nope. Some employees got a little too comfortable. And one of them, the last person Les Gold ever expected. We need to go back to one of the biggest scandals in hardcore pawn history. A trusted employee caught stealing red-handed. Not just any employee, Joe, the shop's head of security. Yeah, you heard that right. The guy responsible for keeping the store safe was the one taking from it. And he wasn't just sneaking out a few cheap items here and there. We're talking about thousands of dollars worth of stolen jewelry. Les had a bad feeling about it. Something wasn't adding up. He set up a trap. Left a valuable diamond ring in a very specific spot. Covered just enough to make it look like it had been forgotten. Next morning, the ring was gone. Now Les isn't the type to panic. He knew something was up, but he needed proof. So he did what any pawn shop owner would do. Check the security footage. And that's when he saw it. Joe, the guy he trusted with his business, his employees, and his family, was caught on camera swiping jewelry. Not once, not twice, but over multiple days. Let's be real. At that moment, Les could have lost it. This was someone who had been with him for over 3 years, someone who was practically family. But instead of flipping out, he played it smart. He called the cops. He made sure Joe stayed in the store. And he acted like everything was completely normal. That might have been the hardest part. Can you imagine standing there talking to a guy who just stole from you, pretending like nothing was wrong? That's what Les had to do. Because if Joe got suspicious, he'd bolt. And Les wasn't about to let that happen. Joe walked into the store like any other day, clueless about what was waiting for him. Meanwhile, Les was already setting the trap. The detectives arrived, the security footage was loaded, and the second Joe was called to the back, he knew. He knew he was done. But here's the crazy part. When confronted, Joe admitted to stealing. No excuses, no lies. He straight up confessed. And then, this is where it gets really wild. He reached into his pocket and pulled out handfuls of stolen jewelry. Over $77,000 worth of merchandise. Let's stop for a second. $77,000. That's not just slipping a few rings in your pocket. That's major theft. And this guy had been doing it for who knows how long. The cops didn't waste a second. Joe was arrested on the spot. And just like that, one of Les Gold's most trusted employees was gone. But this wasn't the first time American Jewelry and Loan had an inside job. In fact, the show exposed a much bigger problem. Employees stealing from right under Les's nose. It wasn't just Joe. There were others. And every time it felt like a punch to the gut. Seth and Ashley were furious. They started questioning everyone. Was there a bigger operation happening behind the scenes? How long had this been going on? Could anyone be trusted? Now let me tell you, working at American Jewelry and Loan wasn't easy. The Golds ran a tight ship, but even then, people found ways to take advantage. Some employees got too comfortable. Some thought they could outsmart the system, but in a place with cameras on every wall, it was only a matter of time before they got caught. And here's where it gets even crazier. This wasn't just a TV moment. This was real life. Bobby J., a former hardcore pawn employee, later confirmed, in an interview, that everything viewers saw was 100% real. There was no faking it, no scripted drama. These thefts, they really happened. Bobby said that after Joe got busted, the whole shop changed. The vibe was off. Everyone was on edge. Every employee suddenly felt like they were under a microscope, and honestly they were. Think about it. Les Gold had millions of dollars in inventory sitting in that store. Gold, diamonds, watches, high-end electronics. Things that could disappear in seconds if the wrong person got too greedy. The Golds had seen it all. Customers trying to pull, scams, people getting violent over low offers, even fake cops trying to rob the place. But when the threat was coming from their own employees, that hit differently. But here's the thing. This was just one of the scandals that rocked hardcore pawn. Because while all of this was happening, something even bigger was going down. Something that would shake up the shop, the show, and Les Gold's entire reputation. To understand how Les Gold became the fearless businessman that millions saw on hardcore pawn, we need to go back decades before the cameras ever rolled. American jewelry and loan wasn't built overnight. It wasn't the result of good luck or a single smart investment. It was the product of years of grinding in an industry where one bad deal could cost you thousands and where trusting the wrong person could mean losing everything. For Les, those lessons came early, and one of them nearly cost him his life. In 1971, long before he was a TV star, Les was working in his grandfather's pawn shop when a day that started out like any other took a deadly turn. It was December 31st, right around noon, when an armed robber stormed into the store. Pawn shops, especially in cities like Detroit, have always been high-risk businesses. They deal in cash, jewelry, gold, and high-end electronics. Exactly the kind of valuables criminals target. This wasn't the first time Les had seen trouble, but this time, it escalated in a way that would haunt him forever. In the chaos of the robbery, gunfire erupted inside the store. A police officer who had responded to the scene was shot and killed. Another man lost his life that day, turning what should have been a routine afternoon into a tragedy that left an unforgettable mark on Les. He was there. He saw it happen. He walked away physically unharmed, but he knew from that moment on that nothing in life was guaranteed. In an instant, everything could be taken away. Most people who experience something like that never fully recover. They live in fear. They walk away from anything remotely dangerous. Les did the opposite. Instead of letting it break him, he made a decision. He would never back down, never let fear dictate his life, and never let anyone take advantage of him or his business. That moment changed the way he handled people, deals, and even his own employees. This is why, years later, when hardcore pawn exploded in popularity, Les ran his store with an iron fist. American Jewelry and Loan wasn't just a pawn shop. It was a massive operation that handled more transactions in a single day than some banks. Every day, over 1,000 people walked through those doors, with 600 to 800 new loans being written up, and another 300 to 400 customers coming in to reclaim their items. When you're dealing with that much volume, there's no room for weakness. There's no time for second guessing. That mindset carried over into his personal philosophy. Trust had to be earned. And once it was broken, there was no going back. This is why it hit so hard when, after everything he had built, after surviving one of the most terrifying moments of his life, betrayal didn't come from the outside. It didn't come from a masked robber or an angry customer. It came from someone he had taken a chance on, someone he believed in, someone who stood behind the counter of his store. Les had always believed in giving people second chances. He understood that life could be tough, and that not everyone had a perfect record. This is why over the years he had rehired employees who had left under questionable circumstances. Some had personal struggles, others had made bad decisions, but if Les thought they were worth the risk, he gave them another shot. That was the case with Amy and Rich, two employees whose return to American Jewelry and Loan had already caused tension behind the scenes. Amy had worked at the store before, but she had left in a way that made Les question her commitment. She didn't just quit, she disappeared. No notice, no explanation, nothing. One day she was there and the next she was gone. Normally Les would have been done with her, but her uncle, who had been a loyal employee for years, personally asked Les to give her another chance. Against his better judgment, he agreed. Seth, always the more skeptical of the two, strongly disagreed with the decision, arguing that someone who had walked away once could easily do it again. Rich, on the other hand, had been with the company for a long time. Les had trained him himself, and at one point he had complete faith in his abilities. But over time, things changed. Rich started making questionable decisions, and Les began to see a pattern of behavior that made him uneasy. Still, he kept him on, believing that experience and training would eventually pay off. What Les didn't realize at the time was that these choices, these second chances, were about to backfire in ways he never saw coming. Employees who had once been loyal started cutting corners, making decisions that put the store at risk, and in some cases doing things that would make Les question everything he had worked for. But the worst part? This wasn't just about poor management or employees not doing their jobs. This was about something deeper, something more dangerous. Les Gold had spent decades building American Jewelry and Loan into one of the most successful pawn shops in the country. It wasn't just about buying and selling. It was about survival. He had seen the industry change, adapted to every challenge, and turned a single store into a multi-location business that served over 1,000 customers every single day. By the time Hardcore Pawn aired in 2010, he was already a legend in the pawn world. But fame brought a new level of scrutiny. Behind the scenes, tensions were growing. The fights between Les, Seth, and Ashley weren't just for TV. There was a real power struggle happening within the family. Seth was ambitious, always looking for ways to modernize the business, sometimes even making deals behind his father's back if he thought they were the right move. Ashley, on the other hand, wasn't as involved in the shop's day-to-day operations. But when she was, she didn't hesitate to challenge her father and brother. The arguments were real. The competition between Seth and Ashley was real. And at times, it felt like the entire family was on the verge of falling apart. But through all of this, Les never lost control. He had been through too much to let family drama or employee betrayals shake him. He had survived an armed robbery, seen people lose everything in an instant, and knew that in this business, the only way to win was to keep moving forward. Even after Hardcore Pawn ended in 2015, he didn't slow down. American Jewelry and Loan was still thriving, and Les was still at the helm alongside Seth. The show may have been over, but the business wasn't. Unlike other reality TV stars who faded into obscurity, Les Gold remained a powerhouse in the pawn industry. While he wasn't as active on social media as his son, he was still very much present in the business. Seth took over most of the public-facing aspects, often posting updates, breaking down iconic moments from the show on TikTok, and occasionally bringing Les in for his take. By this point, Les had built an empire. He was an entrepreneur with multiple locations, hundreds of employees, and millions of dollars in inventory. His estimated net worth hovered around $3.5 million, a testament to decades of relentless work and smart business decisions. But despite his success, rumors started to swirl. For years, there had been strange reports online claiming that Les Gold had passed away. These fake death hoaxes spread on social media, causing confusion among fans who wondered if their favorite TV pawnbroker was really gone. Each time the rumors were proven false, Les was alive, well, and still running the business that had made him famous. But as time went on, the pawn business started revealing something far more concerning. It wasn't just about unique items, heated negotiations, or keeping employees in line. It was about survival. Real survival. In recent years, American Jewelry and Loan has seen a noticeable shift in the types of customers walking through the doors. While the shop always catered to a mix of buyers, sellers, and those in need of quick cash, Les began noticing a growing trend. More and more people weren't coming in to make a profit. They weren't selling collectibles, rare coins, or high-end jewelry for extra spending money. They were pawning everyday items just to get by. It used to be that pawn shops were a last resort for unexpected expenses, a sudden car repair, a medical bill, an emergency that required fast cash. But according to Les, that's no longer the case. He's seeing customers who aren't worried about next month or even next week. They're focused on making it through the day. Many come in desperate, pawning their engagement rings, their family heirlooms, even their tools, the very things they rely on to make a living. Les has always called pawn shops street-level economists, and for good reason. Pawn businesses see the real impact of financial struggles long before the big financial institutions report them. And based on what he's seeing now, things are not looking good. At his 8-mile store in Detroit, the difference is staggering. The line of people looking for loans has doubled, while the line of people redeeming their items has shrunk. This tells Les exactly what's happening. People don't have the money to get their things back. They're pawning their valuables for short-term survival. But when the time comes to reclaim them, they can't afford it. And it's not just Detroit. Les has spoken to pawnbrokers all over the country who are seeing the same thing. Customers are bringing in electronics, tools, and even clothing, items that wouldn't have been considered pawn-worthy a decade ago. The economy may look stable on the surface, but for millions of Americans, the reality is much harsher. This shift isn't just affecting customers, it's affecting business itself. Traditionally, pawn shops balance between selling inventory and providing loans. But with more people pawning and fewer people buying, It creates an imbalance. Shops like American Jewelry and Loan are holding on to more items than ever, waiting for buyers who aren't coming in. The resale market has slowed, and while loans remain a steady source of revenue, even that comes with its risks. Despite all this, Les continues to do what he's always done: adapt. He has weathered economic downturns before, but this time he sees something different. It's not just about a recession or inflation. It's about a fundamental change in how people are living their lives. They're no longer relying on pawn shops as a short-term solution. They're using them as a lifeline. And then there are the stories that remind everyone why hardcore pawn was such a phenomenon in the first place. The bizarre, unexpected, and sometimes downright unbelievable items that walk through the door. Over the years, Les has seen everything from ancient artifacts to high-end sports cars. But one of the most shocking? A van once owned by Dr. Jack Kevorkian, the infamous Dr. Death. Kevorkian was known for his controversial role in assisted suicide cases. And when someone walked into American Jewelry and Loan with his van, Les knew this wasn't just another transaction. The seller originally wanted $40,000, but after some tough negotiating, Les managed to buy it for $20,000. Was it worth it? Probably not in terms of resale value, but for Les, owning a piece of history, no matter how dark, was worth making the deal. Beyond business, Les also dedicated time to giving back. He had always been known for his tough negotiating skills, but he also had a softer side. He was heavily involved in the Heat and Warmth Fund, THAW, a Detroit-based charity that helps low-income families pay their heating bills. Over the years, he organized charity events that raised tens of thousands of dollars, using his platform to make a real impact in his community. Even though he wasn't on TV anymore, Les remained an influential figure in the pawn industry. He had written a book, For What It's Worth, Business Wisdom from a Pawnbroker, which became a New York Times bestseller in 2013, offering readers an inside look at the business world from a man who had spent his life mastering it. Through all of this, Les Gold remains exactly who he's always been: a businessman, a negotiator, and a survivor. While hardcore pawn may no longer be on the air, American Jewelry and Loan is still very much in business, and Les is still at the heart of it. He's not the type to retire, walk away, or slow down. The industry has changed, the economy has shifted, and the customers have different needs. But at the end of the day, the pawn business is still about the same thing: understanding people, making smart deals, and always staying one step ahead. For those wondering what happened to Les Gold, the answer is simple. He's still doing what he does best. And as long as there are people in need, as long as there are deals to be made, and as long as American Jewelry and Loan stands, Les Gold isn't going anywhere.